What if I told you there are just 3 simple steps to retire early and live life on your own terms? It's true, and today I'm going to share with you a 3-step blueprint to help you get on the right path if an early retirement is your goal. I'll also share with you 3 of the major retirement wrecking pitfalls you've got to plan for before you can retire. I've spent the last 15 plus years teaching this stuff to my clients, who are folks a lot like you, people looking to stop working to start living and retire sooner than most people can so they can get the most out of their retirement years. Let's dive in. So the first one, imagine that you're a business owner. Now, might not be tough. I'm sure some of you watching right now are in fact business owners, but go with me here if you aren't. Imagine you're a business owner and you're trying to grow your business. You need to raise capital. You need some more money. And so you go to the bank for a loan and you meet with the loan officer and you say, "Hi, Ted," because the guy's name is Ted. "I'm looking for a loan. I have a pizza business and I'm trying to expand the kitchen, to buy a new oven, to add some capacity, and to start some catering events." And Ted says, "Excellent. Tell me, what's your current revenue? What's your current sales?" And you look at him a little confused, dumbfounded, and you manage to stammer out, "Not really sure. I know we have some sales. We sell pizza. Did I mention that I have a pizza business?" Guess what? You're not getting the loan. Maybe the business is in fine shape. Maybe you'd qualify for the loan, but you have no idea, and neither does Ted. You don't know your numbers. You would be amazed at how many people don't at least have a basic understanding of their numbers when it comes to retirement planning. Now, you don't have to be an expert. That's literally why I have a job, to help people with this stuff. So I hope you're not all experts, but if you're trying to get on track, you've got to have a basic plan in mind, and then you can work with someone to help dial it in. And so step number 1 here, you've got to know your numbers. And I don't just mean the magical unicorn number of you need $1 million or $2 million, $3 million to retire early. You've got to know 3 things here. First off, what are your expenses and what will they be in retirement? Will you have a mortgage? What are your taxes going to be? Are you going to be doing a lot of traveling? Are you still going to be paying for college for the kids? How much do you spend on food? You got to have a pretty good idea of what you're going to need every month just to float things, just to cover your day-to-day expenses. The second piece here, once you figured that out, what kind of income will you have in retirement? Will you have Social Security? If so, how much are you going to have? Do you have a pension? When are these income sources going to start? And more importantly, for early retirement, how long are you going to need to cover things fully from your portfolio before those more traditional sources kick in later on down the line? The third step to knowing your numbers. What do you have put away? And what is your plan to turn those assets into income? I say it all the time here. Assets, the money that you put away for retirement, is the raw fuel that you have to plan your retirement. It's like gasoline. Gasoline has the ability to power your car, but can't do it all by itself. It needs an engine to ignite the gas, to power the car. Your assets are the gasoline. Your retirement income plan is the engine. So not only do you need to know how much raw material you have, what kind of assets, you've also got to have a plan to convert those assets into income to power the retirement as efficiently as possible. Now, that's a whole topic on its own. I got plenty of videos talking about that. I'll link one here in a couple of minutes. I'll put it right over here. Or subscribe to the channel and go poking around the library. I got lots of videos there about how to create an income plan. Now, on to the next one. Have you ever heard the saying, you have to control what you can control? It applies to retirement planning, and here's what I mean. Do you have any control over what the stock market does? No. How about the economy as a whole? No. How about how long you live? Not specifically. We're getting warmer here, but you can't directly control that. And so how about what you spend? Ding, ding, ding. We found it. That's absolutely something that you can control. Now, here's where it matters, and please listen closely. I'm not suggesting austerity here. I'm not for getting to retire early by deciding that you're only going to eat cat food to save money. Live your life. Do the things you want to do and spend the money provided that you're able. But there oftentimes is a point at which you have to look at the trade-offs of pulling a lever to change your output. If spending a little less meant retiring a little earlier, is that worth it to you? It probably depends on exactly how much a little less is and how soon a little earlier is. And then for most folks, they could figure out if it's worthwhile for them. Let me give you an example of how this works. Let's say you're married, you're 56, and you want to retire like today, and you need $100,000 a year in income to pay the bills. And let's say that in the future, you'll have nice income sources coming in. At 62, you've got Social Security of $2,700 per month. Your spouse will have another $1,700 a month, and you got a pension. It's going to kick in at 64. for $2,500 a month. So you've got really solid future income, but your portfolio is going to have to do some of the heavy lifting early in retirement to get you to those points. Now, this is specifically a retirement income calculation here for example purposes. We're not factoring in healthcare costs, the potential for long-term care, taxation, all of the risks of something like someone passing away early. But if we math this out, here's how it looks. To cover $100,000 a year starting at 56 and then lower the withdrawals as those other income sources kick in, you'd need right around $1.25 million to go today, assuming that you have a plan for all those other risks that we just talked about. Now, all in all, not a bad scenario. Here's where controlling costs comes in though. What if you could live on $90,000 a year instead of $100,000? So it's a 10% cut. You decide not to drive new cars. Maybe you take one less vacation per year. You eat out a little bit less. Probably feasible that you could do it if you wanted to without having to resort to eating cat food. Instead of needing $1.25 million that I just told you, you'd need about $950,000 to make the numbers work. That's almost 25% less money to retire at the same time if you can just cut your spending 10%. So if you're trying to retire early, unless you have a big old pot of money, controlling your costs is one of the easiest things to do. Think about it this way. There are a ton of smaller, very impactful variables in a proper retirement plan, but it basically all comes down to this. 1, how much money do you have? 2, how much income are you going to have? And 3, how long you'll need to sustain that income, how much time, and finally 4, how much income you'll need. What are your expenses? The easiest of those to control is the expenses part. You can pull any of those levers. You can work longer, you can put away more money, etc. But the easiest one to do today is to cut costs somewhere. And it may not be something you need to do, but to retire early, if that's the goal, it can be the fastest path to changing your outcome. If you're looking for some help in figuring this sort of thing out for yourself to see if you're on track for that early retirement, or maybe even if you're already there right now, click the first link in the description. You can set up a time to chat with me and we'll show you how you can retire early and start enjoying the best years of your life. The final step to the plan is this. Let's go back in time to December 17th, 1903 on the sand dunes of Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. If you remember your American history from school, you probably have arrived at the conclusion that I'm about to talk about the Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur, who invented air travel on that day. Now, in reality, they flew 120 feet in 12 seconds. It's not exactly transcontinental, but they were the first to fly something. Here's how it applies to us and retirement. They were inventing something brand new. They didn't know what they didn't know. They didn't know the things that could go wrong because nobody had ever done it before. That's a scary bit of business. The good news for us, we're not inventing anything new here, but I still see people making mistakes that could cost them dearly when it comes to retirement planning. Now, we get the advantage of seeing all of those who have gone before us. Imagine if you were on the beach in 1903 and one of the Wright brothers turns to you and they're like, hey, you want to give it a try? Chances are you'd be like, no, man, not a chance. Meanwhile, 120 years later, chances are good you've flown on an airplane. And if you're watching this video, you did it safely because the folks making the airplanes have learned from all of the mistakes that have been made since 1903. The retirement application here is this. You've got to know what can go wrong and you got to have a plan to protect yourself from it. The good news, as I said, is that none of this is a mystery. We're not charting a new course, but you can't go into things blindly. You have to know what can go wrong and plan accordingly. What's your plan for a major market downturn early in retirement? What's your plan for long-term care expenses? What's your plan for managing your tax liability? Where are you going to draw assets from first? And how much? And when will you stop drawing from after-tax money and start utilizing pre-tax money? Now, these and about 500 other things need to be considered in making your plan. That's the kind of stuff that makes retirement planning complex, but it's doable. Just don't go into it willy-nilly without a plan for this sort of thing. Now, there are 3 big ones that you've got to consider. A plan for long-term care expenses, a plan for managing your tax liability, and a plan for covering your general healthcare costs. At a bare minimum, make sure you have an understanding of each of those if you're going to do this thing on your own. But before you can conquer step 3 of the early retirement blueprint, you got to conquer step 1, turning that raw material into fuel to power your day-to-day retirement income. I'll show you how right over here.